All right, welcome everyone. We will get started. Welcome to the NAGT webinar. The NAGT webinar series is your one-stop shop for strengthening work in Earth education. Webinars in the series feature novel and innovative work in Earth education research and pedagogy, new teaching materials, and the classroom and professional experience of people like you. The NAGT webinar series is free and open to the public, and we encourage you to invite your colleagues to attend and join the discussion. On the screen, and linked in the chat is a link to the webinar series where you can find the webinar schedule, an archive of past events, and information on our sponsoring projects and programs. You can find slides, resources, and recordings of each webinar, including today's, through the webinar archives. Before we get started, please take a moment to review the Zoom controls on the screen. We ask that you leave your microphones muted and cameras off. Live captions are available for this presentation. To turn on the captions, click the live transcript button in the control bar and select show subtitle from the pop-up menu. If you have questions and comments along the way, we encourage you to enter those into the chat box. Webinar presenters and staff will be monitoring the chat throughout the presentation. A reminder that participants in all NAGT meetings and events are expected to abide by the NAGT Code of Conduct, which applies in all venues, events, and online forums associated with NAGT. Please read the full NAGT Code of Conduct policy, linked in the chat for details. Today's webinar is titled Recent and Ongoing Efforts of the NAGT Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, presented by members of the NAGT DEI Committee. They are going to give an update on their work from the past year and give space for discussion on future activities. Thank you all so much for participating in the NAGT webinar series. You can go ahead and take it away.
Okay. All right. Thank you all, and we welcome you all to this webinar to share some of the recent things that we are doing and our ongoing efforts of the NAGT Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. Members of the committee include Laura, Leah, Amy, Steve, Mimi, Daniel, Yadira, and myself, Samuel. So in 2018, the paper by Bernard and Copperdock in Nature Geoscience took a deep dive into the issues surrounding diversity in the geosciences, specifically in the United States. So in the figure on the left, we found that geoscience in terms of race and ethnicity and those receiving PhDs are overwhelming white. With the figure on the right, we see that the potential gains made in terms of diversifying the geosciences field are mainly due to increases in those particular populations within the United States. So what does this mean? It means we are not making sufficient progress in the geosciences in terms of diversity. Next slide. So for this webinar, our goal, why is diversity in the geosciences important? We know that recently there has been a lot of geoscience issues that is being solved by a lot of geoscientists. And these issues, like climate change and natural hazards, require diverse thinking with input from people from various backgrounds, as we believe that diversity in knowledge is the closest that we can get to obtaining accurate knowledge. Next slide. So for this webinar, our goal is to update our membership on DEI committee activities and also generate ideas for future work from NAGT members. We also seek to begin an action plan for incorporating new ideas with existing mandates. Next slide, please. All right, so there is a chat here that I want us to all go into the chat box and put our responses there. So what does diversity, equity, and inclusion mean to you in the geosciences? You can put your comments in the chat box.
No, so don't be shy.
We have a shy group today. There we go.
Yeah, here we go. Okay, research with community partners. Yeah, all hands on deck. All feel welcome and valued. Yeah, that's a huge piece of inclusion, right? And more viewpoints, no one is left out, belonging. These are all great. Inclusion of different perspectives.
Having an inclusive and welcoming environment for everyone. Having robust representation of a variety of viewpoints. Opportunity for all, that's a good one. And then all kinds of people, equal opportunity, no matter where you start from. Welcome all. And then new questions. Engagement is accessible and kind. Those are some very good points.
Great. Well, thank you for everyone for your response. I'm Danielle Sumi from the IRIS Consortium. I wanted to share just some of our history and purpose of the DEI committee. We were established in May of 2020, so we've only been active 1 year. And in fact, we realized that our first meeting was on May 19th of 2020. So it's been exactly 1 year that we are presenting today, what we've been able to accomplish. Our charge is to facilitate NAGT's goals that are related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. This means DEI for our membership, leadership, committees, award winners, and participants in all of our events. Our talk is driven today by our tasks, and we want to outline our accomplishments to those tasks today. The first is to establish metrics and assess progress of our demographics of the membership. Second, we want to recommend and implement activities that aim to diversify our membership. We also want to recommend activities to support participation of underrepresented groups in NAGT programming, whether it be conferences, workshops, whatever it might be. We want to recommend and implement strategies to broaden award nominations and leadership opportunities. And finally, provide expertise and guidance to NAGT. So my goal here with the next few slides are to talk about our demographics, and those were aimed to establish metrics of who our NAGT membership is. I want to recognize that I come at this with my own perspective, which is as a white woman who is non-disabled. And we found that the demographics of the NAGT membership are mostly female and come from four-year colleges or universities and are non-disabled. So this image here is just showing potentially what that person may, be in the classroom. Also, I wanted to highlight that we have the breakdown based on gender, employment, and disability below, so you can see the actual numbers and percentages that fall from that response of our NAGT membership. So now is our first poll. So just from what you think, from your estimate, how non-white is NAGT based on our membership? A is 10%, B 17%, C 24%, or D 34%. Okay, so most 62% said 10%, 35% said 17, and 4% said 24. That's great, and none said 34. So, so the answer is 24%, C. And we took a look at how NAGT is doing with its current membership in terms of race and ethnicity. And we found that our membership is 76% white or 24% non-white and 80% not Hispanic or Latinx. And this graph is showing our NAGT membership in orange compared to the US Census from 2019, their quick facts table in blue here. So when it comes to the amount of white people, we're doing on par with the rest of the United States at 76%. However, when it comes to people of other races, we are nowhere close to the representation that people of color have in the United States. I also want to recognize up top that there was a significant amount of people who just simply preferred not to answer this question. So I want to keep that in mind as well. So in the chat box, we wanted to ask this question. So this is a survey that was conducted of the entire membership. And so what we know from as people renew their memberships and different things from the demographic questions, we, the DEI committee, also conducted a survey that also contained demographic information. We plan and ask questions about what resources and different things that we can be supporting for NAGT. And we plan to conduct a follow-up survey next year to help us assess our progress towards our goal of diversifying NAGT. And so in the chat box, we'd like to hear from you, and please tell us your suggestions as to how we can do a better job in assessing our efforts in the diversification of NAGT. So we'll open up that chat box. While everybody is chatting and putting stuff in, I want to read this other one that says, diversity represents a wide range of individuals with varying lived experiences. Equity is the opportunity for a different group of individuals while still recognizing the varying inequities that have impacted those ability to be voiced, and inclusion means that people are all welcome to share their perspective. I love that. That's awesome. So, but how can we be doing a better job in the assessment of our efforts? Oh, yeah, that's a great question. I wonder if there's a way to find out why some choose not to answer. It's a really good question. That does hinder our ability to really do the assessment. Absolutely. Okay. Well, Steve, do you want to take it away or give, oh, there's more chats, I think. Okay, sorry, it's just probably slow internet on my end. Maybe information on faculty retention, that's a great one. I wonder if we can bring family into NAGT outreach. That's a great suggestion too. Yeah, absolutely. Wonder if survey wariness is an issue, right? Too many surveys everywhere you go, absolutely. So many surveys. Help people to know why you're asking for them to enter demographic data. That's a really good one too. Survey feelings of belonging in addition to surveying self-identification. That's an excellent point. Because that's the root of inclusion, right? To feel welcome and that you belong. Collect demographic data for participation in NAGT activities. That's a great one. All right. Okay.
Thanks, Danielle. My name is Steve Maddox. I'm from Grand Valley State University. One of our major tasks is to implement activities that help diversify the geosciences. And so as we looked at the upcoming Earth Educators Rendezvous, we realized it was a virtual meeting, but we also realized we had an opportunity to add some quality programming. So we've added 2 different programs, 2 different workshops. The first workshop is titled Developing Strategies for Inclusive Teaching Practices. It's a 3-day workshop. I think it's almost fully enrolled. So if you're interested, you better hurry up. To start off their workshop, they'll have activities about identity and intersectionality, implicit bias, and they will share some culturally relevant materials. The second part of the workshop is essentially you making a product. So you might think of a syllabus for one of your general education classes that you would like to modify and make your teaching more inclusive for the full range of students in your general education classes. So the providers or the instructors will give you strategies to modify some of your course materials to make them more inclusive. The conveners of this session, Blair Schneider, if you've not met Blair, she's a powerhouse and just full of energy and ideas, and she's been working on this for quite a long time. And along with her will be Angel Garcia, Amy Weisenlogel, and Yadi Ibarra. Sorry, Amy. I'll keep working on that. Next slide, please. Or you can get even when you have your part. The other session is really about telling diversity stories, and you can tell your story in a wide different way, a lot of different ways. You could just do a short video about something that you'd like to share about yourself and your connection to geoscience. So almost any media or medium would be fine. Even if you would like to paint, that would be just great. We really want you just to express your feelings and your experiences related to geosciences. You can be anonymous when you do this, or you can share who you are. So leading this session is Leah Cortland from our committee, along with Danielle, Sammy, and Laura. So you might think about how you might want to contribute to this. You could do it during this session at EER, but this is also something that we're going to be building into the website. You might think of people that you know that might make good stories, or at least add to the diversity of different kinds of people that we have in the geosciences. So please think about adding your story or supporting others as they do. Next slide, please. So in the chat box, we need to think about new ways of reaching out to other people and telling them about NAGT and bringing them into NAGT, because we would benefit from having their perspectives. So you might think about that as you think about it and add something to the chat box. I'll share that one thing that Amy did for NAGT was she attended the meeting for the Association of Black Geologists and Geophysicists. She essentially had a booth, an electronic booth. People would come in and ask about NAGT, and we could share our resources and what NAGT does to those young career folks. Other ways that we can reach out. Who are we missing? Could you guys make some suggestions, please?
I could just say, particularly if you're a part of another organization that's doing something really great that you would like to see us kind of replicate, or if you've done something in your own classroom, unit, department that really helped out in creating a more inclusive, welcoming, accessible, atmosphere. We would love to hear all of that.
How they benefit's a good point. I think certainly for young teachers just starting out in the profession, even as a graduate student, if you have a TA or just starting at university to teach, we certainly have a lot of advantages or materials to help them. Don, thanks for your comment. Reaching diverse school districts, and I think about that quite a bit. I'm usually interacting with 10 or 12 high schools, and 2 of those have really great diversity. The social media, and we've talked about that, that's certainly something we can work on. And you might suggest a few places in social media or ideas. That would be a good thing. Thanks, Mike. The high school and 2ICs, I know we have some 2IC people with us today, but better collaborations directly with them and with their students would be good. Kristen, thank you. That comment rings true about reaching out to university level faculty that think of themselves as research more than teachers. And I'll just be quiet about some of my coworkers at this point. Twitter sounds good. I think I need a webinar on how to do Twitter, and then we'll do better. We hope to connect with SACNAS and attend their meeting either virtually or in person, and GeoLatinas is another great suggestion. Thank you. Next slide.
Oh, there is a comment from Beam. I would love if we could have a database where folks, senior grad students and postdocs that would like to present their talks at universities existed. We could have people, if they want, upload a short video on their research. That's a good one. People could look through the database and contact them to come to the university to give their talk. The university could also set up one-on-one with faculty in the department to get to know one another. This will be beneficial for the students to get practice giving talks at other universities, and universities can get to know them. This will be helpful for prep for job talks. That's a good one, B. Thank you.
Thanks, Sammy. And Mike mentions that maybe making modules that show the relevance of diverse approaches to studying the Earth. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike. I think we have a poll next. Bradley is excellent at supporting us. So in your opinion, what would be the most beneficial activity for NAGT's DEI committee to implement next? So you have 5 choices. Please take a moment and submit an answer. All right. This is kind of what we're used to, seeing things pretty even. So more focused webinars, that could be something very useful. Mentorship programs, having a webinar perhaps on some of the very successful mentoring programs. Networking opportunities. Perhaps you might add in the chat what kind of networking opportunities. For example, many of us are involved with URGE, and it's given us a great opportunity to network with our nearby 2ICs. Small groups, perhaps not, or at least not at this time. And slightly higher was regional place-based small groups. And so here in Michigan, maybe we need a broader group that extends from not just Grand Rapids and nearby 2ICs, but across the state. And I was also thinking maybe at regional GSA meetings, having some sessions on DEI where people can get together and share ideas. Thank you for that poll. Here's some poll results. We do have some from our survey, and it's kind of similar to what you just saw. So when we ask about participation and how to work with people, you know, how likely are you to participate in these different kinds of DEI related opportunities? And they're sort of highest on the left and decreased to the right. So you can see we have a large number of opportunities, and you can think about what you do in your setting or community. The small group theme discussions are still pretty high. Regional discussions that I just mentioned. Town halls at Earth Educators Rendezvous, that's something that we talked about trying to coordinate but couldn't quite pull off for this summer. Webinars and probably different kinds of webinars. I think a good discussion on mentoring would be really useful for all of us. Networking programming, it'd be interesting to think about how we can continue to do that. And maybe support groups to implement some of these changes that we're most interested in. Thank you. Amy?
All right, thanks, Steve. I'm Amy Weiss-Lovell. I'm at West Virginia University, and I say my name one way, and anybody else can say it however it works for them. It's a tongue twister. Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the resources that we've been working on. One is the website, which is live, and I think I can put it in the chat. It's just gotten, going, so I'll put it in the chat if you want to go check it out. We're looking to add more to this. Obviously, it's right now mostly just a house for our diversity stories kind of project, I guess you could call it, or initiative. The idea is, like, we do have some information on our membership demographic. It skews heavily white. We want to make sure that, the other voices in the membership are elevated. So that is the idea behind soliciting and sort of archiving or curating a collection of stories from our members that they can contribute through our website. And this is something that is kind of new to NAGT. So we're, did I give you guys the right? Yeah, if you click on our website, then on the drop down menu, there's a diversity stories tab. And eventually there'll be stories that we hope people will feel comfortable contributing to have their voice be spotlighted and heard. So we're eager to see that become a bigger part of NAGT. And at the Earth Educator Rendezvous, you know, there will be a specific workshop where Danielle and Sammy and some others are going to basically introduce this idea to the organization. Beyond, like Steve mentioned earlier, beyond just a you know, a narrative, it can literally be anything that is important to you or important to expresses your experience. So definitely, we hope that the idea is that this will help for sort of a different avenue for voices to become part of our daily activities as we work together as an organization. Next slide. The other kind of challenge that we are looking at addressing is how we can get sort of improving diversity, improving accessibility, improving inclusion to become more of a broader undertaking by the organization as a whole. Obviously, as a committee, we're going to try to push at what we can forward to help keep momentum and start some new things that will hopefully address some of the problems that we see. But we also want to get the rest of the community and NAGT involved as well. So when we've asked people, no matter kind of what the activity is, whether it's you know, developing resources or the diversity stories or the blog, people actually seem very keen to access them or use them as part of their, you know, in their teaching or in their work or just in life in general. There's a little more hesitancy about contributing. So we don't necessarily understand the origin of that hesitancy. It could be people don't feel like it, you know, that they're qualified or that it's the right thing for them to do, or that they don't have the time, or, you know, it's outside of their scope. So we're not really sure what that hesitancy is, but we're hoping that we can work to find mechanisms that will help get an exchange of diverse voices and build resources to help everybody improve in the classroom and make those spaces more accessible and more welcoming to diversity. Next slide. All right, so with that in mind, we would love to hear the things that you think you would like to do, or you would be able to do, or you would enjoy doing as an activity, as an NAGT member, that would help us create a more inclusive environment, to give greater voice and greater platform to diverse voices in the organization, and to generally make NAGT sort of a leader in being sort of a place for all, you know, where geoscience, where anybody can be a geoscientist, right? So we can have a diverse and geoscience literate population that will result from our accessible and inclusive teaching practices. So if you can put in the chat anything that comes to mind, we would love to hear that. So we see a comment from Katja about moving away from the language of underrepresented, problematic. I agree with that entirely. You know, minoritized is a word that I've seen more commonly advocated for by scholars and by minoritized groups or people from minoritized groups. We could have a guest speaker at various schools. part of the planning committee for a meeting. Oh yeah, the IODP meeting. I did see that announcement. Impact workshops, which look fantastic, about how to engage the public and policymakers. That looks like a really great, great opportunity for people to check out. A dedicated space on the main NAGT page that specifically highlights DEI efforts, partnerships. Yeah, this is a great idea. We have had discussions about more or less, you know, how we can better support the participation of diverse groups, and not just, you know, the wealthy and, you know, non-disabled and all the other people that are well represented already. So yeah, we have an issue with figuring out how to best do that. So if you have specific suggestions about kinds of partnerships, that would be great. I'm not sure NAGT is really ready to actually embrace diversity, and it'd be interesting to reach out to those who have left the organization and ask why. Yeah, so there, from my understanding, and actually some of the other committee members might be able to explain this a little better, there wasn't a long history of obtaining or tracking any kind of demographic information about the organization. And these results that we kind of presented, I think the information existed, but it wasn't preserved or archived or tracked. So we're kind of starting, I think this committee's, one of its charges is to allow that to eventually happen. So it's a great suggestion as to, we don't know who we've lost because we don't know who we've had. So that's part of the problem that needs to be addressed, and hopefully that this committee can work on. So we've got a virtual pub that includes diverse voices. That looks interesting. Folks like me, white, male, cisgender, need help engaging students with different backgrounds and helping them see they have a place in geoscience and that geoscience needs them. Yeah, so we have, I think as a community, not a lot of experience in this realm. And so I think the resources are in development, and that's one of the goals of the workshop this summer at the Earth Educator Rendezvous that Yadi and myself and some others are going to be doing. We're very much interested in providing the lens that lets us see what about our teaching inherently is sort of might have blind spots, or is centering our own race or ethnicity or gender, and basically being able to better, you know, remove that bias, or at least acknowledge it and then move beyond it. So that's a good suggestion. Inclusive pedagogy is important to making inclusive classrooms, so collecting and sharing resources for inclusive pedagogy. Yeah, so that another part of that workshop we're hoping to discuss is sort of the history of the colonial history of geoscience activities, and how what we teach can inherently perpetuate that colonial perspective. So decolonizing geoscience teaching is definitely going to be a topic. There's not a lot of, we found some resources and some amazing resources, but they're not widespread and they're not widely known. So we're going to hope to, you know, get people more familiar with that idea and strategies to employ that. Let's see. Sharing resources, there's lots going on. Yeah. Has a committee at the main NAGT level work with perhaps current upcoming NAGT division level? That's a good question. I don't know that I have a good and much knowledge of that. We have been, I guess I could move on to the next slide. We're getting lots of good stuff here, so I don't want to skip. We'll hold on here for a second. But I'll pin that for the next slide. And I'll let you know what we've done with other committees, not at the division level, but with other NAGT-wide committees. But yeah, sectional reps would be a great sort of great group to network with for our committee. The urge 2AC teams and working on putting together a set of teaching resources. Oh, that's fantastic. I did, I think it was the 2IC on-ramp for, what was it, on-ramp for, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was aiming to make geosciences more accessible to more diverse people, diverse demographics. It was amazing. UNAVCO would like to provide our board of directors with a recommendation how to have a more equitable and transparent process. Yes, that's a great topic. We have not discussed that one, and specifically we have the next slide, I think, about discuss this about awards, but we have not done that so much with leadership. Former NAGT president is a new DEI group chair at AGI. Oh, that's awesome. We should definitely get people together to talk about this. Tenure requirements where inequities exist, encourage adjustments. Exactly. I think as people who are in tenured positions are kind of needing to consider what the barrier of tenure was designed for and how it actually really has a big impact on who gets to be an instructor in some of these environments. Organic, culturally relevant lesson planning and content that connects with non-white communities. A lot of geoscience material doesn't connect to us. We don't see where it fits into our world and community. Exactly. So we, that is a big part, I think, of decolonizing instruction in the geosciences. We have kind of a very much, a lot of our, as a field of study, you know, it was driven by resource extraction and lots of other things that weren't particularly meant to be some of the things we were talking about, being kind and being welcoming and having all voices heard. And it was not the goal. And geoscience played a big role in that. And we have not really, there's been, I've seen here and there efforts that address that, but if we don't start that in the classroom, you know, we're going to be shutting people out right from the start. And that's something that I think needs more attention. Awesome. Those are great suggestions. So I'm super thrilled. All your comments in our next committee meeting, these are going to be super valuable. And I'm so thrilled that you shared these all with us. I really appreciate it. Great. So one of the things that we have done that we're quite pleased with and excited about is we established a NAGT Excellence in JEDI Award. And the goal of this award is to recognize anybody at any career stage doing any manner of work in geoscience education that leads to a more inclusive and accessible experience for educators, students, basically anybody. And so we had our first call for nominations. We got fantastic nominees. We were all super impressed and blown away by some of the wonderful things that our members are doing. And we have our first awardee who has been selected and will be announced in the coming months and formally recognized at the GSA annual meeting in Portland in the fall. So we are we're very happy to see this get started so that we can actually reward the efforts that often are often undertaken by people from marginalized groups and then are often not given full recognition or full credit. We've also just had discussions and looked at other awards and how the nomination process and the review process can be improved so that they are also inclusive and are better aimed at drawing a diverse pool of nominees and a diverse pool of awardees. Next slide. All right. This is the last slide before we wrap up. So if you're hanging in there, thank you for that. One other task that the committee has been charged with is to provide feedback, input, expertise to NAGT on any concern or question relating to the DEI issues that we're facing. So we have generated last summer a statement in support of Black Lives Matter. You can find that also posted on our website if you would like to see that. I thought I had that. I thought I had that link, but I can post it later. But it's there on the main page, or on our main DEI page if you want to find it. Oh, I know where I lost it. Here we go. Copy the link. I'll put that in the chat if you want to see it. So we have also worked with other committees in NAGT, not the division level ones, which is a great suggestion that I think we will definitely take back and figure out how to make that part of our activities. But other committees like the advocacy committee, we've had liaisons with them to try to enhance inclusion and accessibility in NAGT. And we also had some feedback and input that we provided regarding where NAGT events are held in person when that, you know, eventually resumes, in light of any kind of discriminatory laws that might be enacted in certain places. So basically how to navigate these issues. We offer input and advice and try to improve the how NAGT operates in that respect. So that is the last slide of our presentation. We just have a kind of a wrap-up slide next. We would love for you to stay online, and if you have any points, you know, that you raised that you want to reiterate, we're welcome you to contribute either in the chat, or if you feel comfortable, I think if it's allowed to unmute, that would be fantastic. So we are definitely, we've had 1 year, we kind of got the lay of the land and tried to figure out, you know, what we should be doing, tried to make progress on actually doing that, but we only had, you know, sort of a short time to ramp up, and we're still definitely realizing, you know, where we need input from the community to best proceed in the future. So we're thankful for all that you've already provided, and if you have any other thoughts right now, we would love to hear them. And if you have any thoughts after we conclude this webinar, we have an email address that you can feel free to write us an email, and we would love to hear your thoughts. Let's see, so I'm catching up with the chat. Yes, we do not have an anti-Asian racism statement yet. But I remember some discussion of that, and I can't remember.
Yeah, what happened was we were actually writing one when the NAGT came up with a statement. So we kind of held on with our own.
Yeah, so the main executive committee put out one. We should probably link that on our webpage, though, which would make sense. So we should make note of that. So there's a comment about providing statements supporting divisive groups serve that goal. My course of many law enforcement. So in support of Black Lives Matter, we're not supporting any group. If I said group, I should have meant we affirm, our statement says we affirm unequivocally that Black Lives Matter. So we're not endorsing any particular organization or person. It's just the concept of Black Lives Mattering. So that is the thought behind that statement. And then, yeah, the new statements. I have a member of criminal justice majors, pre-service teachers. A number of criminal justice major. Oh, and that's related to the previous conversation. Great. All right. Any other comments that people want to make or share? We appreciate everybody coming. This was a first attempt, and if you enjoyed it or got something valuable from it, I know we definitely did. So I hope you did as well. And would probably be something we will try to do again in another year once we make some more progress based on your feedback and input.